The Yukon's mining season had already been intense, but nothing prepared the Gold Rush world for what unfolded after Episode 5 of Season 16. For the first time since the season began, Parker Schnabel's entire operation had been pushed to its absolute limit, 3 wash plants running wide open for 7 straight days. It was a gamble that demanded tremendous fuel, manpower, patience, and nerves. But as the crew stepped into the gold room for the week's cleanup, the atmosphere felt electrified, like everyone could sense they were standing at the edge of something huge. Even before the first pan hit the scale, the room hummed with a kind of cautious excitement. Parker, Tyson, Mitch, Chris, and the rest of the team circled the table with the exhausted but eager expressions of people who knew they had worked harder than ever and now wanted to see whether it was worth it. They were hoping to beat last week's respectable 527 ounces. They had no idea they were about to blow that number out of the water. The first cleanup of the day came from Roxanne, Tyson's plant stationed at the sulfur cut. Roxanne had only recently entered the season's spotlight, and the ground at sulfur had looked promising. But promising ground and real ounces are two different things. No one was prepared for what Tyson was about to reveal. Mitch couldn't resist joking that Tyson seemed to have spent quality time with Roxanne all week. Tyson brushed it off with a grin, saying the cleanup had been so enormous he couldn't even fit all the gold into the regular containers. He admitted he'd even had to stash overflow in his thermos because the scale tray couldn't hold it all. Everyone laughed until the first pan hit the scale. A cascade of gold rushed out like a waterfall, filling the pan in a thick, sparkling blanket. The readout stabilized. 300 ounces. Exactly. But Chris wasn't done. He reached into his bag and produced the thermos. The room erupted in disbelief. When the extra gold was added to the pile, the total shot past 350 ounces, pushing the value of Roxanne's week alone to roughly $1.25 million. The ground at sulfur wasn't just rich, it was historic. At 150 yards per hour, the cut was producing some of the best gold Parker had ever mined. Tyson shook his head in amazement, admitting that cleanups like this were what made the backbreaking days and long nights feel worthwhile. The tone of the room shifted. Suddenly, everyone realized this wasn't going to be a normal week. With the shock of sulfur still hanging in the air like fog, the team moved on to Bob's cleanup from Dominion's bridge cut. Bob was the quiet workhorse of the fleet, not flashy, not dramatic, but incredibly consistent. Parker encouraged Chris to bring out the next samples. Chris obliged, emptying Bob's concentrate into the pan. The gold flowed cleanly, settling into a uniform pool that immediately told the crew Bob had, once again, done exactly what was asked of it. The final count came in at just under 200 ounces. It wasn't as explosive as Roxanne's result, but it was money in the bank, steady, dependable, and exactly the kind of production Parker needs to keep the season on track. Dominion had proven itself yet again. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, Sluicifer's cleanup from the Golden Mile. The Golden Mile has always been Parker's crown jewel, the pay streak he's built his entire season around. After running the plant hard all week, hopes were sky high, but this crew has seen the Yukon humble even the best ground. As the first scoop of Sluicifer's gold hit the pan, the excitement returned. The gold just kept coming. Scoop after scoop piled into the pan, climbing higher and higher until the entire room fell into stunned silence. By the time the final ounces slid into place, the total had pushed past 260 ounces. That meant the Golden Mile alone had added roughly $1.6 million to Parker's tally for the week. 3 plants. 1 week. And the gold totals were spiraling upward at a pace no one had dared to dream about. The final total, an unbelievable 808.15 ounces in 1 week. When the numbers from all 3 plants were finally combined, the scale flashed a total that made even Parker do a double take. 808.15 ounces. More than $2.5 million in raw gold. In 7 days. That massive number shattered last week's total of 527 ounces and stood as one of the largest single-week cleanups Parker's crew has ever achieved. To put it into perspective, Parker reminded the team that at this same point last season, they had only produced 288 ounces, less than a single plant had contributed this week. Now, they were sitting on over 2,000 ounces worth more than $7 million, and more than one-third of it had come from this week alone. Chris joked that if they could manage numbers like this every week, the season would be one for the record books. Parker laughed, saying they just had to repeat the performance 10 more times and then maybe a few extra for good measure. As the crew stood around the towering pile of gold, the room filled with a quiet awe. Someone remarked that they were staring at $2.5 million in metal sitting right on the table. Another joked about handing out gold pans like party favors. Laughter rippled through the gold room, but beneath it lay genuine, sober realization. They had just achieved in 1 week what used to take an entire season. Parker didn't hide his amazement. He said that seeing that much gold all at once was almost hypnotic, something that didn't feel real even when you were looking right at it. Then, shifting from wonder to business, he reminded everyone of the next essential step. All of this, every last flake, needed to go straight into the safe. No exceptions. The crew nodded. When you're holding more than $2 million in your hands, security suddenly becomes very, very real. A turning point for Parker's season. The record-breaking cleanup didn't just boost morale, it changed the narrative of Parker's entire season. What had begun as a high-risk strategy of running 3 plants simultaneously had paid off in spectacular fashion. The success validated his investments, his crew's grinding effort, and the belief that this season could surpass every previous one. For the viewers at home, the weigh-in was nothing short of jaw-dropping. Few moments in Gold Rush history have delivered such pure shock, triumph, and exhilaration all at once. And as Parker locked away more than $2.5 million in gleaming yellow metal, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a good week. This was a statement. Parker Schnabel and his crew had officially rewritten the rules of what 1 week of mining could produce. For the fans watching at home, this is the moment when Gold Rush becomes more than a show, it becomes a story unfolding in real time. Viewers have followed Parker from his teenage years through triumphs, failures, and reinventions. But season 16 is shaping up differently. The stakes are higher, the operation is larger, and Parker's ambitions are clearer than ever. The 808-ounce week didn't close a chapter, it opened one. Now, every cleanup carries the possibility of another monster haul. Every hour of machine time could be the difference between breaking records or breaking down. And every decision Parker makes, where to dig, which ground to prioritize, or to shift manpower, could change the entire season's outcome. This is the version of Gold Rush fans live for, the raw uncertainty, the massive risks, and the possibility that Parker Schnabel is on the verge of one of the greatest seasons of his career. Parker is chasing new records, new totals, and maybe even a season that will stand among the greatest ever filmed. To witness how far he can go, fans need to stay with him through the setbacks, the victories, and the unpredictable chaos of mining in the Yukon. Season 16 isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. And Parker Schnabel is right in the middle of the most ambitious run of his life.